Maybe someone won't believe me in what I'm going to say, but it all really started by my girlfriend. She was my best friend, who was named Raquel, and I stayed with my friend that night. Raquel didn't see well. She very much wanted to know more about horror stories. Her was telling these horror stories. Most of the horror stories Raquel was talking about were just silly lies. So I started telling her some horror stories, which were of a very good character. And Raquel seemed very serious while hearing those stories. I asked her what happened, but she didn't. Told me about a story, telling about a clown who was their neighbor, who had been evicted from the town instead of making the children happy. It caused them grief. That neighbor was a stranger, and the neighbors said that his garbage smelled like rotten meat. Raquel said that one day the policeman opened the bag belonging to that clown and found inside it a corpse, and the clown then committed suicide in a very strange way. I don't know why this story is remembered so well. At this time, I was going next to my friend Raquel, who was looking attentively at the window above her bed, where she hung her eyes turned towards her, which made me tell her, "You should sleep. You're so weird tonight." Raquel didn't say any word. Then I rummaged in a deep sleep. The morning, however, I did not find Raquel in her place by the bed. I saw Raquel standing in a corner by the window, and he got up from my place quickly, and my body froze when I heard her. As I approached her, she said, "Don't touch me." And I said to her at that moment, "Is this crazy or what?" And she said, He came?" I asked her. "Who came?" She pointed me at that time towards the window, and there was an unexpected surprise, where I had seen that clown, who looked horribly. And here Raquel spoke up and said, "Run away from here." I hurried outside, but I was unable to walk at such a time. Very dark. I was very horrified by the horror of that scene that I had seen of the clown a little while ago. So I walk and not be afraid of the darkness of the night. And since that night, I know nothing about my girlfriend Raquel, as that her house, this was a story by a girl named Emilia Guzman, who sent it to one of the state of horror that had seized her and those the night is so strange and whimsical, after which she has not seen her best friend Raquel, and she does not know what the secret is behind everything that has happened, so the story may seem very strange, and many not believe. I loved romance novels very much. When I was 17, I used to lock my room and spend hours reading these novels, imagining myself as a girl in the 18th century with a lover who resembled the heroes of romance novels and movies. I even started dreaming about a young man. I couldn't wait to sleep to see him. He told me his name was James, and he came from a distant land just for me. He had long, golden hair and wore old white clothes, like he was exactly the knight of my dreams, just I had imagined him. I would spend most of the day sleeping, going to bed at 7:00 p.m. just to dream about James. He would come to me and stay with me all night. We would dance and talk together. He tried to get closer to me, but I refused, even though I knew it was all just a dream. After I rejected him, James changed a lot, but I would always wake up in time, drenched in sweat. Since it was just a dream, there was no need for all this fear. That's how I reassured myself constantly. But one night, I woke up, screaming in fear of James, as he held me and said, "You belong to me alone." To my astonishment, I saw him standing at the edge of my bed, and he seemed angry. He was now in my room, and I was awake. I told her what had happened, and she instructed my sister to sleep with me in the room until my fear subsided. It was a temporary solution, but it worked, and I didn't see James again, not even in my dreams. However, he didn't leave. He was always near me, I felt his presence more than once as he tried to frighten and terrify me in every possible way. I would see dark shadows moving around me. I hear that both my family and I hear music coming from my room, suddenly rising, then stopping. Once I was in the living room with a group of friends, watching a movie, and suddenly we heard a man's voice coming from the bathroom. Only my friends and I were at home. My family had gone to visit my aunt and wouldn't return until evening. I invited my friends to stay with me until my family came back. The voice kept getting louder and it sounded familiar to me. My friend muted the TV to make sure of what we were hearing. And there was no doubt. It was him, I shouted loudly. "It's James." After that, the sound stopped. Evening came, and my family still hadn't returned. My last friend with me was about to leave, because her father refused to let her stay overnight. She actually left, leaving me alone at around 10 p.m. I felt sleepy. I hadn't been sleeping early ever since I started fearing James, but in the end, I gave in to sleep and went to my room. Thank goodness, my family returned and woke me up from the sleep. I pleaded with my sister to either sleep with me in my room or allow me to sleep in hers, even if it meant on the floor. So I suggested that we swap rooms. I would move to her room, and she would move to mine, even though her room was smaller. I just wanted to avoid seeing James again. He seemed to have vanished for good. However, a few days ago, my father decided to take my previous room and turn it into his office, since it was on the first floor. He gave my sister another room on the newly built third floor. While helping my sister move her belongings from the room, she suddenly laughed out loud and said to herself, "James won't like this." I had never felt such fear before, and I was truly shocked by what I had heard. I asked her, "What did you just say?" She smiled, looked away, and then picked up one of the boxes, ready to leave. She then told me, "Don't worry, he's an English guy. I see him in my dreams, asking me to dance with him. At first, I thought he was friendly, but I recently discovered he's a creepy person." Life may subject us to terrifying experiences we initially pay little heed to. However, as time passes, we may come to understand why we faced those trials. Throughout our lives, we may remain ignorant. This is perhaps what Mrs. Samaya went through during the birth of her child, and her encounter with the grieving lady. The narrator, named Samaya, is a woman in her 30s who got married many years ago, but only had a child after 4 years of treatment and seeking. Naturally, she had to opt for childbirth in a private hospital to ensure the quality of care for both herself and her newborn child. In the moment of giving birth, something significant happened. Samaya moved to the hospital in October when her due date arrived. Her mother and husband accompanied her throughout the day. When the nurses came and started to administer anesthesia, it took only a few minutes before the anesthesia took effect. Samaya began to feel the heaviness in her eyelids as she drifted between wakeful. During those moments, she saw a lady wearing a blue dress, looking at her from behind the nursing staff, smiling. However, Samaya fell into a deep slumber at that moment. Samaya woke up to find her baby in her arm. She beamed with joy, despite the pain. After both she and the baby were examined, the nurse placed the newborn in his small bed in the same room as Samaya's. The head nurse then ordered Samaya to stay at the hospital for a few days until all the tests were completed and she could be assured of her and the baby's well-being. Samaya's husband agreed immediately. Samaya fell asleep once more, but she woke up in the middle of the night, startled by someone trying to wake her. She initially thought it might be her mother or her husband, only to turn around and find the same lady in the blue dress sleeping next to her. Samaya screamed in terror and asked her who she was, but she received no response. The lady only smiled, and then her teeth began to gnash together, producing disturbing sounds. In her panic, Samaya attempted to run out of the room when she realized. However, she found her hands and feet bound to the bed. Meanwhile, Samaya struggled to get up, but couldn't. Suddenly, one of the nurses arrived, took the baby from the lady, and the lady vanished. Samaya was finally able to get up, crying heavily, and she recounted everything that had happened. However, the nurse appeared confused and told her that there was no such lady present. Samaya's husband and mother were still by her side, bewildered by the situation. In the evening, the head nurse, after overhearing a conversation among the nurses, told Samaya to leave. Exactly a year ago, in that same room, on the very same day, the lady in the blue dress had died during childbirth. What made the situation even more intriguing was the complete disappearance of the newborn baby, who was never found. It was a true catastrophe at the time, leading to a year-long investigation. The room was reopened to accommodate other expectant ladies just 1 week before Samaya gave birth. Samaya returned home, but after 5 days, she noticed marks on her baby's back, resembling human fingerprints, in the exact spot. What's even more startling is that the lady in the blue dress didn't leave Samaya. She continued to appear every year on the anniversary of the child's birth. This led Samaya to one day sleep in her son's room. Thank you for watching this scary story from the world of darkness. For more horror and puzzles, subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to like the video and leave your comments. We wish you nights full of horror and mystery.